Hey everybody, Rosa here, and welcome to part 20 of my Umineko Let's Play. In the last episode, we had even further divide among the groups as Shannon seemingly came back from the dead to tell the servants that it was actually Rosa who killed Jessica. And I imagine that was Beatrice taking over Shannon to cause more animosity between the groups just for her entertainment. And then, of course, Rosa herself being very distrustful of the servants and refusing to even allow them in the same room as her. And even after a moment where it seemed like she would, she wanted to forgive them once everything was over and once their innocence was proven, at the end she told Battler how you can't trust furniture and they're scum, basically. So Rosa, that was totally unexpected, but also not unexpected at the same time. And of course, unfortunately, we did have the deaths of Kumasawa and Nancho by the hands of zombie Shannon. And that just further puts distrust onto the servants by Rosa because the bodies have disappeared. And she says the only person you can trust is a dead person. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in this episode if we're going to have more deaths, but only one way to find out. Let's go ahead and let's see what happens next.
信じられない。それが真相だというのかい。
はい。私たちは見たままのことをお話ししています。
George folded his arms and started humming again, and the kitchen was once again absorbed by a long silence.
ジョージ様がにわかには信じられない気持ちも私はよくわかります。何しろこの目で確かに見たはずの私ですらあれが何だったのかわからなくなる。私は確かに見た。そして取っ組み合いまでしたはずなんです。なのにあれが全部幻だったような気すらする。
なるほどね。あのローザおばさんに詳しく話せないわけだ。今の話を本当にしてたらもっと面倒なトラブルになっていただろうね。なるほど。源氏さんが随分冷静な対応をしていたのが分かりました。
私にそれを説明するだけの力があればよかったのですが。
George had not actually seen it, so even when pressed to believe, he just couldn't imagine it. It was only natural, because even the people who had actually seen it had ended up questioning themselves as to what it was.
話を少し巻き戻すよ。シャノンはカノン君が偽物かもしれないと思ったとき、
Yes, I want to get into
クモの
this.
巣を取ってきたと言ったね。
Like why she did that, and why she knew that would work.
どうしてそんなことを？
そうだ。それは私も思っていました。どうしてクモの巣だったんです？
前に熊沢さんに聞いたことがあるんです。
Oh my gosh, she talked about something that wasn't fish?
大昔の六軒島には悪霊が住んでいて、そのクモの巣を恐れたって。
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, Kumasawa and Nanjo are dead. Shit. Yeah, that's right. Wow.
それでクモの巣を魔除けと尊んで大切にしたという昔話があるんだそうです。それでその土佐に。
I wonder if it's kind of the same thing like dream catchers. The whole idea, it's like kind of like a spider web and it catches bad dreams, if that's the same kind of idea.
私も少し混乱していたんだと思います。
I feel like Shannon, that's a little bit more than she's letting on. I feel like she's definitely got some magical powers too, and she knows how to defeat Beatrice's powers. I mean, if Shannon has powers, Shannon must have as well. I have to believe that.
そんな話が。熊沢はそういう昔話に詳しかったな。
クモは液中ですからね。確かにそういう信仰があってもおかしくないかもしれない。
きっとその悪霊の力をあの鳥居の祠が封じ込めてたんだと思います。そして霊境が割られたのでその力が蘇って。
Yeah, I love how she says in the third person, the mirror was broken, not the fact that she was the one who broke the mirror. So Shan's got to feel guilty. She's the one who she must feel like she brought all this on everybody.
ベアトリーチェ様を蘇らせる力となってしまったに違いないのです。私が 心の弱かった私があんな大それたことをしなけれ
Oh,
ば。
she's admitting it to everybody.
シャノン、その話はもうしなくても大丈夫だよ。僕は君を責めたりなんかしない。
Since long ago, Shannon had often hinted at a certain occult aspect regarding how she had met George. While he did lend an ear to her tales, George had always thought that this was a typical of a girl, associating love with fate, chance, and miracles. George had thought that breaking the spirit mirror offered to the Torii shrine was going a little too far, but he had forgiven her, laughing it off as just a little prank she had done because she had seriously desired a relationship with him. Just breaking a mirror in some musty shrine wouldn't change the fate of our meeting. And that would never cause any curse. I remember cheering her up, saying it was only a musty mirror covered in dust.
ベアトリーチェ様という霊のような存在がいるという話はこの島に勤めるようになってからたくさんの同僚に聞かされました。最初はバカバカしいと思っていましたが、それを批判するとなんだか不謹慎そうな空気があったもので、私も表向きは信じているように振る舞っていきました。しかしまさか本当に。
いたんです。ベアトリーチェ様はずっとこのお屋敷におられたんです。でもベアトリーチェ様は力を失っておられて、私たちの前に姿を現すことができなかったんです。ずっといた。私たちが見えなかっただけなんです。
源氏さんの意見を聞きたいです。
私には
Of course you
何
don't.
も意見はありません。
Because he's furniture, right?
一つだけ申し上げたいのは、私たちはあの時ここに5人いた。そしてカノンが勝手口から帰ってきたと思った。そして使用人室に運び、何かが起こって南條先生と熊沢が帰らぬ人となってしまった。それだけです。私たちは見たものをすでに全て説明しました。それを見ていないジョージ様に信じろというのはとても無理な話だと理解しています。
信じられるわけがない。あれは間違いなくカノンさんだと思った。でもあいつがベッドから起き上がって、そうこんな風にしながら胸の傷をまさぐり始めた時、こいつはカノンさんじゃない、誰か別の存在なんだと直感しました。ジョージ様にはわからないでしょう。よく知っていると思っていた人物が実は別人であることをさらけ出した瞬間の恐ろしさというものは。
That feels like some foreshadowing when a person you thought you knew exposes that they're in fact someone else.
説明できない。
I feel like that could be this game in general, is like the people are not who you think they are.
とても説明できるわけがない。
わかるよ。郷田さんがそれほどまでにショックを受けるどんな恐ろしいことがあったのか。
ありがとうございます、ジョージ様。
And they all went silent again. No matter how many times she was consoled, Shannon kept crying, weeping that listening to the witch's sweet whispers and breaking the spirit mirror on that day had been where all this had gone wrong.
君に囁いたという魔女はその鏡があると力を失うんだね。
少し説明してくれた気がしますが、よく覚えていません。あの鏡があると力が出せないというようなことを言っていたと思います。
君が割ったというその鏡はどうしたの？
Is George suggesting that they just have to like put it back together again and everything will be fine?
覚えていません。多分割ったまま立ち去りましたから。
Oh no,
そのま
George.
まそこに残ってたでしょう。
George is gonna go out in the typhoon and try and fix the mirror to make Shannon feel better.
ということは岩礁が雷で打たれて消えたとかいう時に海の底か。
Or not.
まあ拾って接着剤で貼り付けたところでご利益は戻らないだろうけどね。
私は本当になんてことを。
ごめん、失言したよ。
He didn't know whether Shannon breaking the mirror had really been what had started everything off. The servants didn't go so far as to blame Shannon, but it seemed they believed it had been the trigger. But even now, there was no way George could believe that much. Even if he was told a story about witches and evil spirits, it just sounded fake to him. Even so, he listened seriously to Shannon's story, trying to find a hint that might relieve at least a little bit of the pain in her heart.
そういえば、その鳥居にあったものとは違うでしょうが、奥様がお守りとして霊鏡をお持ちになっていると聞いたことがあります。
夏日おばさんが？
はい。おじい様の形見分けか何かでもらったものだそうで、とても強い魔除けの力を持つ由緒正しい。
Oh man, Natsui, we barely saw any of any of the family members in this chapter. I guess we were, following them more in the first chapter. This one's more focused on the servants, but still Natsui was such a big part of the first chapter. And, I kind of forgot she existed in this one.
霊鏡だとかなんとか。
同じ話は私も聞いたことがある。鏡は良くないものを反射して弾き返す力があるのだとか。
その霊鏡があれば魔女のベアトリーチェに対抗できるかな。
When George proposed this, the servants looked up.
祀っていた鳥居と祠はもうないかもしれないけれど、霊鏡がもう一枚あるのは重要なことだよ。
But they don't have... I was about to say, the servants might be opposed to breaking into their master's bedroom even if they're dead, but it doesn't matter. They don't have their master keys anymore. They're going to have to try and sneak it from Rosa, or try and convince Rosa to give one of the keys, which she will not do.
夏日おばさんの実家は神職にも通じていると聞いたことがある。それは本当に単なる鏡ではないかもしれない。
Well, that's an interesting fact. Natsui's family descended from priests? That seems like pretty important information.
確か奥様は宝物箱に入れて大事にしまっている。そんなに大きいものではないのかもしれません。
大きさの問題ではなかったと思います。私が割った鏡も一見大したことのない小さな鏡に見えました。
相手がオカルトならこちらもオカルトの手段で対抗するしかない。ただこうして座っていても何も解決しない。単なる気休めだとしてもやってみる価値はあるよ。
Of course, this didn't mean that George had accepted the witch. However, he thought it would be necessary to have some kind of purification ceremony to heal the wounds in Shannon's heart. So this story about Natsui's spirit mirror was just what the doctor ordered.
行こう。魔女をやっつけようなんて大それたことは言わないよ。でも魔女から身を守る魔除けがあってもいいと思う。前にマリアちゃんに聞いたんだけど、おじいさまの部屋の扉は強力な魔除けが施されているんでしょ。
Oh yeah, still have to see about Kinzo if he's dead or not.
さすがおじいさまだね。オカルトに対する防御も十分だったわけだ。行こう。夏日おばさんの部屋へ。
しかし、奥様の部屋には鍵がかかっていると思います。マスターキーはローザ様にお返ししてしまいましたし、キーボックスのある使用人室も施錠されてしまいましたし。
ならば、その鍵は夏日おばさんが持ち歩いているはず。
Oh, are they gonna go through her body?
礼拝堂には、
Oh wow.
まだ夏日おばさんの遺体があるはずだ。
But the chapel was locked up too, wasn't it?
警察が来る前に勝手にいじってしまうのは悪いことだけれど、それについてはちゃんと説明しよ
う。しかし、礼拝堂の入り口も鍵がかけられております。
ゴーダさんの腕力じゃガラス一枚割れないのかい？その辺の石で叩き割ればいい。
大切な礼拝堂の窓を破ってしまっても、よろしいのでしょうか。
おじいさまに怒られるときは僕が責任を持つよ。僕はもともと今日後宮家の全員と戦うつもりでいた。
Wow, okay.
君との婚約を許してもらうためにね。だから元よりその覚悟はある。ガラスを割ろう。そして夏日おばさんの遺体から鍵を借りよう。
It seemed that George's claim he would take responsibility had given the servants a great amount of courage. Shannon and Goda glanced at each other and then looked at George's face again.
オカルトに詳しいおじい様だもの。夏日おばさんの霊境の力だってきっと理解してくれる。大丈夫。怒られたりなんかしない。
奥様の鏡で本当にベアトリーチェ様をもう一度封じることができるでしょうか。
わからない。でも試す価値はあると思う。なら行こう。表はどんどん暗くなっちゃうよ。急ごう。シャノンは懐中電灯を、ゴーダさんはガラスを割れそうな道具を。
Alright, you know, good on George. It's like he's gonna be like, we got Rosa with the Ushiromiya family. She's the one kind of in charge, and she's a little, you know, quick to anger, and she's not very cool-headed, whereas George is like taking control for the servants, and he's a leader for sure.
ゲンジさんはすみません。傘の用意をお願いします。
So I wonder at some point we're gonna have a standoff between George and Rosa.
はい。
The servants, who had been rejected by Rosa, started to move once again, having gained a new master. George, who was normally calm and gentle, was now exuding a commanding presence. Shannon checked the emergency flashlight, just in case she changed the batteries. Goda was examining several heavy-looking cooking tools. Normally, a self-respecting chef like himself wouldn't want to use them for anything other than their intended purpose. But now he is frantic to fulfill the orders of the one he accepted as his new master. After some deliberation, he took a large, weighty frying pan. Genji removed several umbrellas from the umbrella stand set in the corner near the back door of the kitchen. He took 3 of them.
ゲンジさん。
私はご一緒できません。ご用命の時に全員がいないようなことがあっては。後ろ。
そんな源氏さん。今のこの屋敷で一人でいることがどれだけ危険か、あなたもわかるでしょう。
私はいけぬ。親方様からいつお呼び出しがあってもいいように。
That's if he's still alive.
いなくてはならぬ。
源氏様。
言って、ジョージ様にお仕えするように。くれぐれも粗相のないように。ゴーダ、手本となるよう、よろしく頼む。
はい。お任せください。
必ずやお役目を果たします。
本当にいいんですね、ゲンジさん。
はい。私はもうこの年です。今日までの人生はすべて、親方様に受けたご恩をお返しするための日々でした。このような老いぼれがどうなろうと、すべてはルーレットの召しだ。私は、どのような結果が出るのかを、ここに座って見届けたいと思います。
As Genji said this, he sat down, as though saying he didn't intend to discuss this anymore. His gaze fell to the chessboard he had played on with Nancho. When George saw this, he decided to leave Genji there.
行こう、みんな。今は少し風もおとなしいみたいだ。
George took an umbrella and dashed out to the hallway, and Shannon and Goda chased after him, each holding a tool. All right. Now let's just hope they don't run into Rosa and her shotgun. After they flew out of the room, Genji quietly extended his hand to the side of the chessboard. He softly pulled something that was there towards himself, and hid it by covering it with his palm. Ooh. Genji killed his breathing even more than before. As he did, something flashed gold. Oh! From inside an ice pail set on the counter, a small gold butterfly appeared, softly and silently. It was almost as though it had watched George and the rest leave. It was trying to secretly follow them. Oh! It happened in an instant. The gold butterfly, oh wow, elegantly flapping its wings, was pinned against the wall by the knife Genji had thrown, just like a butterfly in a bug collection. Every time I hear that sound, I associate it with someone dying, so I was like, fuck, did it just kill Genji? Genji, you are badass, my dude. After the gold butterfly beat its wings several times, looking like it was in pain, it accepted the fact it couldn't break free, became fine gold powder and smoke, and disappeared as though dissolving into water. Genji's gaze was still lowered at the chessboard, as though nothing had happened. Maybe he would think up a brilliant move very soon. But no matter what move he made, his opponent would not be able to respond for all eternity. Even though he knew that, Genji searched for a brilliant move. It must have been the perfect way to kill time during the short period before some fate would be given to him. He didn't know what result the roulette would bring about, but the decision would be made very soon. No one could interfere with the tumbling roulette ball. The door to the parlor was not only locked, but blocked with a barricade made of sofas and the like. So Auntie Rosa seemed to suspect that if a suspicious person appeared, it would be by breaking the window. Sitting on a one-person sofa, her back to the door, she continued to hold on to her gun. And then it's just Battler and Maria. So Battler's like, great, I'm stuck with like a crazy lady and a crazy little girl. I didn't know what was what anymore, and so my body and mind worn out. I was just playing with Maria however she wanted. Poor Battler, man. He lost the only other person he had that he could talk to, I feel like normally. Like Rosa won't listen to him, and Maria, she kind of goes back and forth between being her normal self and being the other Maria. Poor Battler, in this one, he really has been kind of pushed to the back, hasn't he? Like, we barely hear about him in this one. He's not the protagonist in this chapter. In Maria's words, Beatrice was testing us to see whether we could solve the epitaph of the gold, so we had to challenge this riddle. In the beginning, I had been a little interested, and had tried to solve it, but I didn't have a clue what those weird paragraphs even meant in the first place. I didn't doubt that there was some riddle hidden there, but I couldn't imagine I would solve it by chance. In the middle part of the epitaph, there were lines saying the journey to the Golden Land over the course of the 1st to the 10th twilight. On the 1st twilight, sacrifice the 6 chosen by the key. On the 2nd twilight, those who remain shall tear apart the 2 who are close. It was obvious this hinted at the first 6 murders that had already occurred in the chapel, and Jessica and Kennekun's murders. If this was being followed, we would have to be prepared for yet 5 more people to be killed. On the 4th twilight, gouge the head and kill. On the 5th twilight, gouge the chest and kill. On the 6th twilight, gouge the stomach and kill. On the 7th twilight, gouge the knee and kill. On the 8th twilight, gouge the leg and kill. The bodies of Dr. Nanjo and Kumasawa Bachan hadn't been found. However, if we reasonably assumed they were the sacrifices of the 4th and 5th twilights, they would surely be found in a pitiful state, with their head and chest gouged. In which case, could we expect 3 more would be gouged in the stomach, knee, and leg and be killed? Who would that be? I looked around the room, noticing there were 3 people here, but how should I say it? My emotions seemed paralyzed. Oh yeah, 3 people, so I'm just like, so Goda, Shannon, and George could potentially, we're looking at people that would be in groups, right? Strangely, I didn't find it terrifying. Maria noticed me with my upper body entrusted to the sofa, gazing lazily up at the ceiling. Apparently, she felt I was slacking off in my riddle solving. She got mad at me and told me I wasn't being serious enough.
なあ、マリア。ベアトリーチェは確か、これを解いたらどうするって言ってたんだっけ?
I was sure the witch had written in her letter she would give up on collecting the interest or something abstract like that. I was optimistically taking that to mean she would give up on killing the whole family. But was it really written with that meaning? I didn't really feel like solving this riddle, or I didn't really feel that solving this riddle would actually save us. I thought that even if we did solve it, that would be doing just what the culprit wanted us to, and would all be a wasted effort.
そんなことはない。この碑文が解けたら、ベアとの儀式はおしまいになる。だからもうそれ以上、誰も死ななくなる。
本当にか? そういうルールを奴が提示してるだけだろ。この謎を解けば、多分、じい様の隠し黄金のありかがわかるんだろう。奴はきっとそれを狙って。
おお、狙わないよ。
なんでそう断言できるんだよ。
黄金は最初からベアとのものだもん。自分のものを狙ったりなんかしない。
じゃあ、どうしてベアトは俺たちにこんな大ヒントを授けてくれたんだ? というか、どうしてこんなゲームじみたことを仕掛けてきたんだ?
魔法にはリスクが必要なの。
リスク?
よく意味がわかんねえな。
例えばマラソン。完走すれば誰でももらえるメダルと、一番になった人しかもらえないメダルって同じ価値だと思う？
思わねえぜ。つまりなんだよ。結局、奴は遊んでるってことなのか？わざとこっちにチャンスを与えるようなことをして。
違う。それがね、魔法というものなの。どんな大きな魔法にも絶対にリスクや弱点があるの。ないといけないの。
魔法って言われるとピンとこねえが、ギャンブルだって考えれば少しは理解できるな。でかく失う覚悟がなきゃ、でかくは勝てない。そして、勝ち目の薄いギャンブルであればあるほど、配当はでかくなる。
その通りだよ。だからベアとは儀式のリスクをちゃんとみんなに説明したの。だからこの謎を解けばちゃんと儀式は中断される。だってそれを約束違反したらリスクにならない。
これを解けば、奴は本当に約束を守るのか？
花は枯れるのにどうして美しいの？造花は見分けがつかないほど精巧でもどうして美しくないの？人間は死を賭すから奇跡が起こせる。不死の人間がいたとして、その人物に何の奇跡も起こせる道理はない。私たちも人生も魔女も儀式も。
You know, Rosa must be tired when she's just letting Maria go on and on about this stuff and not saying anything about it.
私たちはリスクを負わなければ何も成し遂げられないの。
謎が解けたらどうするんだ？ピンポーンって鳴らして挙手して、回答を魔女に伝えて答え合わせをするのか？
それは知らない。でも解けばきっと自動的に儀式は終わる。
マリアは詳しいな。そいつはみんなベアトリーチェに習ったのか
？So, if you don't bear a risk, nothing can be gained. That is doubtlessly the way of the world. But it was in conflict with the chessboard theory style of thinking that I liked. A move in chess is always a search for the best play that minimizes the risk and promises an advantageous turn of events. You don't trust your plays to chance like in gambling. That's right, there's no room for gambling in an intellectual game. And yet, this person called Beatrice was carrying out such an outrageous crime, or maybe a ritual, while purposely imposing conditions for her own loss and announcing them to us. In chess, you always play the best move, so by standing in your opponent's position, you can predict their next move. However, you couldn't say for sure that Beatrice's moves were always the best moves. I thought she was probably making us focus on the epitaph as a smokescreen to mislead us about something. But Maria said that of all things was impossible. She said this was a genuine risk that the witch had taken, and therefore proof that this was a formal magical ritual. I can't understand this witch called Beatrice. She must be committing this chain of murders with some goal in mind. So why would she deliberately expose the conditions for her own defeat? No matter how I flip the chessboard and think from my opponent's perspective, I can't understand why she would give up if this riddle was solved. Isn't it almost as though Beatrice doesn't care whether she wins or loses? It's natural that chessboard reasoning wouldn't work if you played chess against an opponent like this. I don't understand. What is Beatrice after that's making her commit this crime? If she just wants to massacre us all, she could just do it secretly without this whole crazy setup. There was no need for the scrupulous advice, or advance notice, dramatic suggestions of locked rooms or anything. It's all over-dramatized. I don't get the point at all. As long as I continue to think of Beatrice as a greedy human culprit, will I be unable to understand anything? If I don't accept her as a witch, will I be unable to even set the pieces on the chessboard at all? If she really is a witch, and everything Maria said is true, then there's only one thing we should have been doing. We shouldn't have bothered with any of the reasoning or the discord or searching for the culprit. We should have all gathered in the dining hall and pooled our knowledge to solve this riddle. If we had pooled the knowledge of that many people, maybe we would have been able to at least grasp a thread of the answer. We greedy humans, desiring to gain something more than one another, never pooled our knowledge, and were being offered up as sacrifices one by one. In the end, were we humans getting what we deserved? We all thought we were thinking, but we were actually thinking only of our greedy selves. This is Beatrice's way of having the family. This is like one of those like work retreats where you have to all, you get put in a situation, you all have to work together as a group. This is like her. This is like Beatrice's. This is like her retreat where the family is splintered, only thinking about themselves, and this is her way of being like, everybody needs to come together and work together, or you all die. In the end, chessboard theory is a technique of thinking where you project yourself on your opponent. So greedy people look inside their opponents and see their greedy selves. I looked vaguely at Auntie Rosa. She was probably tired from being under all this tension the whole time. She wasn't sleeping, but she was continually staring vaguely at some point off in space. Auntie Rosa had proclaimed she couldn't trust anyone who had not been killed. Auntie Rosa's chessboard thinking saw herself inside her opponent. In other words, Auntie Rosa might be an isolated woman, unable to trust anyone and unable to let her guard down. Long ago, I think I heard a bit about it from my dad. Auntie Rosa had originally been a very obedient child, but because her age was so far separated from her other siblings, and because her confrontational siblings had often made conflicting demands of her, she had been going through psychological hardship ever since she was young. Here comes the tragic Rosa backstory. Apparently, when she had taken the side of one sibling, often another gave her a hard time for it. Like, I can sympathize with her, but still, like, I can't really forgive her for how she treats Maria. Certainly, Auntie Rosa had said many things today that could be taken as abusive language. But those were words that had been engraved into her vocabulary because they had been showered upon her as well. The many abusive words she had spoken were also the same abuse that Auntie Rosa had been showered with the past. Here, I guess they're going about the abusive cycle. She was abused by her father and her siblings, so she abuses Maria and all that stuff. Now that I think about it, I have the feeling that her style of speech today has occasional traces of Uncle Kraus and Auntie Ava in it. I just assumed the similarity came from being siblings, but maybe that wasn't the case. For the first time, I was able to sympathize from my heart with Auntie Rosa, who I had come to think of as being only gentle. Then, what about Maria? Maria had been claiming something for a while. If we could solve the riddle that the witch had presented to us, the ritual would be halted, and we would definitely be saved. And I think she also said that Beatrice would never break a promise she made. So that describes Maria herself. She's the one with the most innocent heart, who would never break a promise. So she believed Beatrice wouldn't break a promise either. She could believe that. But wasn't that just an image of Beatrice that Maria imagined? There's no proof the real Beatrice definitely keeps her promises, right? Alright, there's the other red thing. I keep my promises. But doesn't the Golden Land require people to die anyway? The whole thing about the Golden Land kind of confuses me, because it still implies that it's somewhere not of Earth. So, I don't know.
お前みたいな怪道の極みがルール
わらわが残忍で卑劣で外道であることを否定はせぬ。だがわらわは魔女だ。魔法を使う。魔法を使うには守らねばならぬルールがある。わらわは魔女だからこそそれをないがしろにできぬのだ。それだけは信じるがよい。
これだけめちゃくちゃやってきて、それでもルールだけは信じろってのかよ。
わらわはたぶらかしはする。もちろん人も騙す。人間と変わらぬ。だが約束として口にしたことを保護にしたことは一度もない。人間はどうか約束を I
love her. She's like, yeah, I can be a terrible monster, but at least I keep my promises. Whereas humans, they can be terrible people and deceive people, but they don't even keep their promises, so they're even worse than I am.
約束を守ろうなんてキャッチフレーズがある以上、 ちゃんと履行されてるかどうかは疑わしいな。
わらわから見れば、人間の方がよっぽど利己的で下道な存在よ。人間の約束ほど疑わしいものはない。わらわも時に人間と契約するが、くだらない願い一つ叶えるのに、どれほど厳重に取り決めをするか想像もつくまい。少しでも隙があると、連中はすぐに、叶える願いの数を100に増やせとか、小さな豆粒に変身してみろとか言い出す。
親父によく言われたぜ。契約書ほど怖えもんはねえって。よく読まずにハンコを押すやつは、骨の髄まで喋られて当然だって言ってたぜ。悪徳で荒稼ぎしてやがったんだな。
察しろ。人は生まれながらに詐欺を知りはせぬ。どこかで被った。だから覚えた。
And this game dropping some truths right now. It's like we're all born innocent, wanting to trust, and then something happens to us. We get betrayed in some way, and then we learn to distrust others because of that.
押し付け合わずにはいられぬ人の世の罪。
We're all like Mario at the beginning, right? We want to believe wholeheartedly that people are good and honest, until they're not.
はて、どこの魔女に聞いたやら。まあいい。そなたが思っているほど、わらわも無慈悲ではないぞ。
嘘をつけ。これだけの大勢を。しかもまた、こんな残酷な方法で殺しておいて。何が無慈悲ではないだ。約束は守るだと。いい加減なことを言うな。俺はお前を認めない。断じて。それを譲らないことだけが、お前への抵抗だと俺は信じてる。
Well, at least we got that fire from Battler. Like the last episode, he was so broken and beat down, and he actually did accept her. And now he's just like, nope, not anymore.
なるほど。永遠の苛波であるのは、わらわに対しても同じであるというわけか。かもしれぬな。1000年は長い。魔女の強さは、魔力より我慢強さで決まるのかもしれんな。なるほど。
There's Burn can still.
何をわけのわかんねえ話をブツブツ言ってやがる。
And I'm like Battler, like, let's introduce these other witches. Come on, we've already got a little bit of taste of her in the end of the first chapter, but there's multiple witches.
さっさと永遠の苛波とやらを続けろよ。俺は1000年でも1万年でも付き合う覚悟だぜ。
よいよい。少しは戦う気力も戻ってきたようだな。そうでなければつまらない。ほら、対戦ゲームでもよくあるだろう。乱入したけど、相手があまりに弱くて拍子抜けで、わざと負けて最終ラウンドまで延長させて、最後に本気でフルボッコにすることとかってあるだろう。
例えの意味がわかんねえよ。
ワインと同じよ。よく熟成させねば輝かぬ。お前はそれに耐えられるワインだ。わらわがじっくり熟成させてやる。そなたをわらわの優雅な時間を彩る最高の美酒に育て上げてやるぞ。だからこの程度で屈服などするな。わらわを引き続き否定してくれよ。何しろわらわはそなたが認めぬ限り儚き幻想に過ぎぬのだから。
何度見ても辛いな。
胸中お察しします。シャノンさん、鍵を頼みます。お亡くなりになられたとはいえ、奥様はレディーです。
Okay, nice passing off, Goda. He's like, I don't want to disrespect the body. Okay, you don't want to touch the icky body.
私には触れることができません。
はい。
I gotta stop bragging on Goda so much. He's definitely elevated himself this chapter. Shannon nodded sharply, her expression filled with a sense of duty. George, Goda, and Shannon had broken a suitable window and were inside the chapel. Since they really hadn't wanted to break one, they had searched for another way in just in case. But in the end, that only proved once again that there was nowhere that anyone could slip in through, and emphasized further how inscrutable was the chapter's locked room. Inside the chapel, time had stopped since they had left it earlier. Of course, even George could not approach that horrible Halloween party again. It was only natural, because it made him remember again the sadness of losing both his parents at once. And Goda, thinking of the possibility that their bodies might have changed in some horrible way now that half a day has passed, didn't want to let George approach. Shannon followed Goda's instructions and approached the party table. Ooh, something new's gonna be there, isn't there? Normally, Shannon might have resented having another dirty job forced on her, but now she could truly understand Goda's mental state. Despite Goda's prodigious skill, he had gotten into trouble, lost his job, and been left out on the streets. And then Natsui had given him a new life. Oh, we didn't know about that, I don't think. So there's definitely more to Goda's backstory, where it seemed before like he just wanted to, I guess, maybe have a change of pace from working at the hotel. But now he'd gotten into trouble and lost his job. Oh, so it was... And yet he's still so prideful. Oh, I wonder if we're going to get into what happened to him. Even though it had just been a casual employment for Natsui, Goda must have felt it was a turning point in his fate. Those around Goda could see he felt a special kind of loyalty to Natsui, so he probably didn't want to lose that feeling, even though she was dead. Interesting. I like that we're getting a little bit more in-depth into the characters and their relationships with each other. Now that half a day has passed, the bodies of Natsui and the rest had changed completely. Small bugs that had sniffed out the smell of death had started to gather. Ugh, it really wasn't something you could look at directly.
奥様、失礼いたします。
Because of her long experience as a servant, Shannon had an idea of which pocket Natsui had kept the key to her room in. Probably in this pocket. Her guess didn't fail her. Just by touching the outside of the pocket, she was immediately able to feel it.
ありました。奥様の部屋の鍵です。
Shannon held the key up high, showing the others it had been found. As George and Goda watched her, their eyes opened wide. Uh-oh, that wasn't the expression Shannon was expecting, so it startled her. What? Oh, shit. Of course Beatrice's not gonna just let her get the mirror. Oh, I wonder if Shannon's gonna show off her powers here, because Shannon hadn't noticed. George and Goda, watching from afar, had been able to notice it first. Or are these going to be the three right now, the three in the group that are going to be dying? Gouge the, what was it? Gouge the head, gouge the knee, gouge the stomach, or something like that? Because when Shannon had held the key up high, a blizzard of gold leaf had billowed up from around the table. They were countless gold butterflies, because it was the first time George had seen them. To him, they might have looked fantastical, but Goda already knew. He knew those gold butterflies, far from being beautiful, held sway over something disastrous. And that gold swelled, trying to suck Shannon in.
Shannon-san! 走って!
Shannon also realized she was about to be swallowed up by gold butterflies. She ran on steadily, her expression still shocked. As she did, the gold butterflies danced around Shannon and said, "Oh no, don't tell me they're about to kill Shannon right in front of George. He's gonna lose his mind." They grouped together. They tried to swallow her up.
Shannon! くそ、なんだこれは。これが君たちの言っていた黄金の蝶なのか。
早く外へ。こいつらめ。くそ、くそ。
He's got his fists up like, I'm gonna punch all these butterflies. George and Goda rushed up to Shannon, driving off the group of butterflies. And while the butterflies were scattered, they ran towards the broken window. However, they needed good footing to get out of the window, which was surrounded with shards of broken glass. When they had entered, there had been enough time to prepare for that, but now there was none.
扉から出よう。足場を探してる時間なんかない。
開かない。硬い。
貸して。くそ、このオンボロが。
ジョージ様、お早く。くそ、ダメだな。
He is punching the butterflies, isn't he? Goda took off his jacket, swinging it around and scattering the group of butterflies. But he was vastly outnumbered. It was doubtful it even brought them a short amount of time. George struggled with the virtually broken handle. Its age showed, and it didn't turn well. Brute force alone won't do. It needs the right angle or some trick.
ジョージ様くそーこの化け物どもが
Just then, Goda saw it. He was seen by it. In other words, their eyes met. On top of the party table, no, floating above it, backed by a stained glass window, laughing, the figure of the witch. He saw the figure of the witch laughing in the center of the golden whirlwind, allowing the gold butterflies to attend to her whims.
ベアトリーチェ
It should have been Goda's first meeting with her, but he knew her at a glance. Just like the other servants had said, this was certainly the witch of the portrait herself.
そろそろ晩餐の時間ではないか。すでにわらわはこの屋敷のホストである。そなたらを素晴らしきディナーで歓待しなくてはならぬというもの。
Oh, they're all gonna die right now, aren't they?
おあつらえ向きに三人ではない
Yeah,
か。
the three of them for the ritual.
これは実に好都合。
Oh?
開いた
were on the other side of the door. So it was natural that if he did touch them directly, Goda's cry would turn from something brave into a shameful and yet very real scream that would make glass shatter. Oh, Goda couldn't believe what was right before his eyes. Going through the door, an arm, almost as though it was sticking through the surface of the water, slipped through as though it was perfectly natural, and stroked the back of Goda's hand as he tried desperately to hold the door closed. It traced slowly up his arm, to his chest, and then his chin. By now, Goda's scream was not even vocalized. He could hear a sweet whispering voice from across the door. It wasn't coming from the witch, but judging by the sound of the voice, it was a young woman. But there was no difference in the fact it was a voice from one not of this world. Beelzebub. Sounded like Kumasawa. Oh, uh-oh. One down. Oh, Goda, you tried. You tried. That obscene arm burst apart, and they heard the sound of something jumping across the room at an incredible speed. They didn't know what it was. Incredibly fast, small, like steel, or maybe a beetle. When it buried itself right in the center of Goda's chest and stopped, for the first time, they realized that its true form was something like a stake with a strange design on it. Goda's large body shook, bent backwards, and fell over. As it did, the door opened softly, even though no one was pushing it, and the new masters of this room were welcomed in. It looked almost as though the door itself had accepted them. Yeah, I think George and Shannon are about to go down, but now we've discovered the knowledge of this mirror that might be able to repel Beatrice. That maybe can be used in another chapter. It's like all the pieces are coming together, and we gotta like get them all at once in one perfect world line, right? Where everything comes together. Yeah, I want to hope Shannon has some magical powers and can protect her and George, but Cannon couldn't even do that, and he was only he only was one goat guy and one girl. Now there's 6 of these guys and one of those girl thingies, which is, I don't know what those things are. The stakes. We'll call them stakes. Then the witch entered, and the gold butterflies entered. The room was wrapped in a blizzard of gold leaf, which fell and piled up, turning into a world of gold.
Shannon, ルーレットはそなたとジョージを選んだ。解放の日に感謝せよ。未練はあるまい？ないよな。
It's just like Cannon and Jessica, you know, they died together, now the other 2 lovers are dying together.
惚れた男から婚約指輪をもらって、夜も共にしないうちに殺されてしまっても、未練なんかないよな。女の幸せを教えてもらいたかったんだろう。ああ、シャーノン、ダメダメ。垂れてるぜ。お前の口元から未練が。だらだら垂れてんのが見えるぜ。シャーノン。
Crack. It was the sound of the lid to the treasure box breaking and opening. Oh, here we go. Come on. It probably isn't even in there. It was just like hope, a little bit of hope that maybe we'd have something. When George turned it over, out fell accessories, charms, very small objects that not to be treasured when she was a girl. Mixed in with those was a pouch that stood out from the rest. Oh! He picked it up and checked it immediately. This was it. Watch, it's gonna do absolutely nothing. I hope it does, but...
いいって及ばなかったの。
Oh, no.
死ね
Oh, no. All at once, the gold butterflies attacked George, who was painfully, slowly trying to remove the contents of the pouch. Come on, Shannon, magic powers, go! Come on, come on. Oh? Oh, this might be... Oh, are we gonna have Shannon's powers, or did George just disappear? Just then, it seemed like, for just an instant, a bright red flash lit up the room. That red flash seemed to... Oh, yes! Shannon! That red flash seemed to wipe out the gold butterflies that were raging around the room within a circle drawn with Shannon at the center. Therefore, it was a very defined scene, almost as though a single streak of light had cut through the clouds in the ceiling in this world of gold. George, who was curled up in a ball trying to protect himself from the group of butterflies, didn't have a clue what had occurred. Yes! Shannon, you're a magical girl! You're a magical girl! Yes! And then he noticed Shannon was blocking the way to him, shielding him, with a serious face that she had never shown him before, as she glared at the witch and the rest. Oh,
忘
damn.
れていたそなたもまた金蔵の優れた家具だったなそれもカノンよりだいぶ熟成した
Oh, Shannon, you are so cool.
カノン君をよくも殺したことじゃないよくも亡骸を消し去りその名誉まで汚そうとしたな
おやおやシャーノそれ怒ってるのかカノンに会えなくて寂しいならわらわに頼めよいつだって会わせてやるというのに
Alright, Shannon, let's see how you do. Cannon! Oh, no. Oh, Shannon's not going to be able to go after Cannon. When the witch snapped her fingers, one of the 6 goat attendants glittered gold and changed into Cannon. Except she was able to do it before with the spider webs. It was definitely a sight to make one doubt their eyes. It was definitely Cannon's face. However, in those eyes, there was none of that sincere glint of Cannon's. They were only the clouded eyes of furniture that did nothing but obey the orders of the witch. George couldn't understand the scene before his eyes, and he finally understood why Goda and the rest had been unable to talk about what they had seen in the servant room.
楽しいですか
ああ楽しいぞ死が引き裂いた2人を再会させるのはいつだって楽しい死で引き裂いて1度合わせて2度もう一度引き裂いて3度楽しめるのだからなさあカノン姉と遊んでやりなさいもし痛めつけられたら思いっきり苦悶の表情を浮かべてやるといい
Oh, this is fucked up. She's making them fight each other. From the imposter Cannon's arm, a strangely shining trail extended. It planned to tear Shannon apart with that. Shannon, who still hadn't prepared her heart, apart with a single stroke.
許さない一度ならず二度までも死者を汚すなんて許せない
ほざくな弟に殺されろよショーノきっといい夢が見られるぜ
Uh-oh. Alright, who fell? Who fell? As the imposter Cannon drew several purple trails, he definitely had attacked Shannon. But when he flew at Shannon, it felt like some kind of invisible wall had been set up in front of her. He's gonna go after George, isn't he? Just like with the, with before, it's like, don't go after Cannon, go after the one, you know, go after Jessica. The one he cares about. A bright red ripple trail was left on the wall, and it repelled the imposter. No, it didn't repel him. It smashed him. Oh, damn! It knocked him back, turning him to gold dust into pieces, scattering him. Nice, Shannon! The figure of the foolish furniture who had mocked Cannon's form, and even disgraced his honor after his death, broke into countless gold butterflies, And then those butterflies themselves broke into pieces. And those pieces were broken into pieces until they were no longer butterflies, but a spray of gold, and then disappeared.
シャノン。
ジョージさんはそこから動かないでください。中心軸をずらしたくない。
これは驚いた。虫一匹殺せない面をしてこれだけの力を見せたか。
Yeah, George maybe subconsciously thought he had the power in this relationship, not knowing Shannon is an actual magical girl, so something to think about, George.
なるほど。霊境がそなたに力を貸しているというのか。しかしその霊境の本当の力を引き出すには準備も時間も足りないな。そのどちらもわらわは与えはせぬ。
The spirit mirror George gripped was letting out a divine radiance and displaying its strength not to submit to wicked power. But that radiance was no match for the witch's sinister nature.
これだから家具は怖い。予期せずしてタンスの角にぶつける足の小指のような気持ちよ。これだから家具は怖い。家具が。家具。
私は家具じゃない。そしてあなたを今はとても哀れに思う。
何？ほう。1000年の魔女に100年も至らぬ家具が今何と言ったか。
あなたはとても哀れな人。愛し合う二人に未練がないわけがない。でもあなたの期待するような未練はかけらほどもない。
語るか。家具の分際でジョージと結ばれたくてわらわの靴を舐めた日々を忘れてわらわにそれを語るか。
愛に生き泥濘を這うが人間。それを嘲笑い見下しているつもりであなたはそれにはるかに劣る。私は今こそあなたを哀れに思う。
Alright, Shannon, this is an awesome speech. But I feel like this is going to be like your last speech. I don't want it to be, but I mean, after what happened last time with Cannon.
愛し合う二人にとって添い遂げることにどれほどの意味が。意味はある。きっとある。でもそれはあなたの言うこととは全然違う。もっと新鮮にして。あなたごとき邪悪が口にする資格もないほどの新鮮な意味がある。だから私にはすでに何の未練もない。
Yeah, I think Shannon knows she's gonna die too. She's just delaying the inevitable.
ジョージさんと愛を誓い合った。その証として指輪を受け取った。それで永遠の誓いは完了した。あなたがどんな邪悪な魔法や悪意で私たちを災難だとしても永遠は汚さない。
綺麗事を詩人のように語るな。愛は情欲なんだよ。少女漫画みたく綺麗事ばっかりで語れねえんだよ。男どもはお前の匂いに惹かれて群がるウジバエどもなんだよ。
Maybe Shannon's gonna throw back and be like, it must be a sad existence for you as a witch. Like, people worship you, and, you know, they can love you, but you'll never know true love like we have, or something like
そんな
that.
こともその年でまだ理解できねえのかよ。お前は失望するぜ。その後ろのメガネ男のどす黒い欲望、一度でも覗いちまったら、がっかり愕然唖然呆然全然ダメだぜ、ショーノン。
Is she been hanging around Battler too much? No goddamn good at all.
ああ、もういいや、語るな家具が。
She definitely got under her skin, though.
何様のつもりだよ、語りやがって。愛なんて結局はど汚ねえ汚物をどう綺麗に見せようかって欺瞞なんだよ。
Maybe Beatrice is secretly salty. She'll never understand or, you know, be able to experience true love.
そいつに気づいて人は大人になるんだろう。 死ねよクズ。家具スクラップ。お前を汚らわしいウジ虫に変えてやるよ。それでもそのメガネがお前を愛するか試してやるよ。そいつの愛のどぎたねえ現実ってやつを教えてやるよ。死ねえよガラクタが。てめえが愛を語るんじゃねえ。
Wow, she really hit a sore spot with Beatrice talking about love. The invisible columns of light with Shannon at the center started to have bright red ripples drawn all over it at once. The wall did its best to withstand the invisible malice that was trying to corrode it from all directions.
なんだよそれは。抵抗してるつもりかよ。安っぽいんだよ。薄っぺらいんだよ。お前の綺麗事と同じなんだよ。見せかけだけの薄っぺら。見たくないものをベールで覆って隠してるだけなんだよ。まだわかんないのかよ。だから家具なんだよ。家具。ほらほらほらほらほら削られてるぜ。カリカリコリコリガリガリゴリゴリな。
Oh my gosh.
薄くて情けないんだよ。お前のその薄っぺらな抵抗に比べたらパルミチャーノレッチアーノの方がまだ削るのに苦労がいるぜ。
The golden windstorm that covered the room gradually shaved away the walls of the column that protected Shannon and George. Yeah, like Shannon knows her and George are about to die, but she's like, at least I got to give my speech. I got under her skin a little bit, giving her some doubts, and telling her we don't have regrets. The bright red ripples frantically drew a pattern of resistance, but the wall was beginning to envelop the two, becoming instead a red wall of despair.
ジョージさん、ごめんなさい。やはり私には無理でした。
ありがとう。君は僕のために。それだけで嬉しいよ。
Oh, here we go. As the column that had once protected them was assaulted and covered with a trail of blood-curdling red ripples, it contracted and began to suck the two of them up instead. Shannon grasped George's hand behind her, so George hugged her shoulders just as strongly.
なんだい。
最後に愛してるって聞かせてください。
ああ、さよ。僕は君を永遠に。
Oh, she killed him before that's evil. Oh, she killed him before he could actually say it. Oh, that was so sad. That was actually really sad. The relationship's still like a little like squicky in some aspects, but that was really sweet. And now we're just left with Badler and Rosa and Maria. I can't believe how quickly people are dying. This is insane. This feels like it's moving so much faster. Oh, and well, Kinzo we don't know, and then we've got Genji as well. Yeah. After Genji finished taking his late meal, he went out to do the nighttime rounds inside the mansion. He reheated the soup Goda had started making and ate some random leftovers from the refrigerator. They were all things Goda had made for himself, and were of course delicious. Oh, so we've got Badler, Rosa, and Maria versus one servant, and maybe Kinzo. Oh, this is not going to be good. He had half-heartedly gone to ask Rosa and the others what they would like to do for dinner, but he had been yelled at by a voice telling him they had canned food, so they were fine, and the door wasn't even opened for him. So ironically, it was the servant Genji who was able to eat the most delicious meal. But even though all the crimes had been committed, and many people had already met a brutal end, why was it that Genji wasn't afraid to do the rounds all by himself? Judging by his appearance as he carried out his normal tasks without a trace of fear, as though everything was normal, you might think all this horrible events that had happened today were just a dream or an illusion. Was he taking a philosophical view, or was it simply resignation? Genji must have considered it a virtue to systematically carry out his duty until the last moment, since the fate that awaited him was unavoidable. I'm surprised Genji hasn't checked up on Kinzo, but maybe Kinzo doesn't want him to, and he's just, being, I guess, good furniture and only going to Kinzo when he's called for. So I gotta assume maybe Kinzo's dead. Maybe he's been dead all this time and we have no idea. It would probably be eternally impossible to perceive the depths of his heart unless he told of it himself. Because he had given the master key back to Rosa, the places he could go to were extremely limited. All he could do was walk around the hallways, checking to make sure the windows were closed. So he was able to go around that route far more quickly than usual. After the sound of a moderate knock, Auntie Rosa, who had been falling into a doze shortly before, jumped and woke up, pointing the barrel of the gun at the door as she yelled. And this is going to be bad, too, because the only person that could possibly have killed George and Shannon would be, and Goda, would be Genji. I was napping on a sofa, and that voice also brought me back to reality.
ローザ様、源氏でございます。
何か用なの？扉は開けなくて結構よ。そのままで話して。
はい。それではこのままで失礼させていただきます。南條先生と熊沢の遺体を見つけました。
Okay, where were they?
なんだって。
そう、わかったわ。確認に行きましょう。
Ooh, I wonder if maybe they were in Kinzo's room.
死体を見ない限り、私は誰も信じない。
I'm imagining they were somewhere in the mansion since he was, like, checking around.
大丈夫だよ、バトラー。マリアといれば絶対に大丈夫。
Maybe my face was shadowed with anxiety. Maria grasped my hand with her small hand and spoke softly, trying to give me courage. Since it was Auntie Rosa's job to ready the gun and stand guard, it fell to me to remove the barricade of sofas. When I finished, I took a backward glance at Auntie Rosa, who was pointing the barrel of the gun over my shoulder, and opened the door.
ケンジさん、二人の死体はどこに？
中庭です。
Oh, okay.
ご案内いたします。
バトラ君待って。念のため部屋の戸締まりを確認していくわ。ちょっと待ってね。
Auntie Rosa called me to halt to prevent from going on ahead and began to carefully check the locks on each of the windows. But those locks had already been checked once. It felt kind of unpleasant, as though she suspected I might have secretly unlocked them when she wasn't looking. No, maybe she was right to be this cautious. Even though it was called a courtyard, it wasn't really a pretty place you could take a walk in like the Rose Garden. On the contrary, since it was surrounded by the mansion on all sides, it made you feel a little discomfort, as though it was telling you that you couldn't escape from the mansion, even if you tried to escape to the outside. On the other hand, thanks to that, even though the violent winds could be heard, the wind itself was blocked. Genji-san held out an umbrella, but Auntie Rosa ignored him. She probably wanted to say the gun took two hands, so taking the umbrella would be dangerous because she wouldn't be able to fire the gun. Even without Genji-san pointing his finger, we could tell immediately. Right in the center of the courtyard, we could see where Dr. Nanjo and Kumasawa-san lay. Auntie Rosa entered the courtyard without even an umbrella, so Genji-san and I also entered the courtyard without opening one. Only Maria had one open like normal.
マリア、これはあれだな。
おお、第7の番と第8の番だね。
なるほど。確かに源氏さんたちが言っていたように、二人の首にはひどい傷があるわね。すごく鋭利な、まるで日本刀か何かで切ったかのようにすっぱりね。
That gaping wound on their necks definitely made me want to avert my eyes. But after seeing the Halloween party in the chapel, even though I thought it was horrible, it was no longer enough to make me feel sick. Instead, our gazes were directed to their legs, in Dr. Nanjo's knee, in Kumasawa-san's ankle. Driven into each of them was something like a knife or a stake with a demonic decoration. They would surely be the same as the one that had pierced Jessica's back.
これは何なの？ジェシカちゃんの時と同じね。何かオカルトの儀式のつもりなの？
わかりません。
Mari's gonna be like, let me school all of you. Come on, I've been telling you guys.
彼らの遺体を最後に見た時にはこのようなものはありませんでした。使用人室から運び出された後にやられた。
The one that had been stuck into Dr. Nanjo's knee was still standing erect. But the one that had been thrust into Kumasawa-san's ankle might have been a little shallower. It had come out and fallen over. So it was only when I saw the one that had fallen over that for the first time I realized it wasn't a knife, but something like a stake. Its full length was probably about 30 centimeters. It was probably made of bronze or iron or something of the sort. Even without touching it, I could tell it had some weight to it. It was composed of a grip and a cone-shaped part, and it was obviously made to be a piercing weapon. Maybe you could describe it like a miniature version of those lances Western knights used on horseback. Okay, let me check to see if there's any update on Kumasawa and Nancho's. Okay, so yeah, his corpse, which had gone missing, was later found in the courtyard. At that time, it was found with a weapon shaped like a stake that had been rammed to the knee. That finishes up the 7th Twilight. And then the 8th Twilight as well. Okay. So as we can see, because they haven't been found yet, George and Shannon and Goda are still shown as being technically alive, even though we saw what happened to them. The grooves that had been carved into a spiral shape made it also look like a drill. However, the grip had an occult-like design of a demon or something, so instead of a weapon used in war, it felt like something that would be used in a ritual to offer up a sacrifice.
間違いない。生贄のつもりなんだな。
第7の番に膝をえぐりて殺せ。第8の番に足をえぐりて殺せ。
待てよ。それじゃ第4、5、6の番が抜けちまう。
Oh, okay. Interesting. So that means that they must have... Hold on. Let me check again. The epitaph here. Gouge the head, gouge the stomach. Or gouge the chest, gouge the stomach. So that's going to be Goda, not Jessica, Shannon and George. So yeah, they haven't been found yet. So the 7th and 8th happen afterwards. Okay. I guess as long as the stakes haven't been put in, that doesn't count as being part of the ritual. So the stakes would have happened to put into Shannon, George, and Goda first, and then Kumasawa and Nanjo afterwards. Alright, well, we're coming up to the 9th Twilight pretty soon, so it's going to be over soon. I wonder how much of this chapter is left.
まさか。
That's right. Why is Genji-san alone? If something like this had happened, why wouldn't George Aniki, Goda-san, or Shannon-chan be there? Why was Genji-san alone?
どういうこと？
Oh, great. Now they're all going to suspect Genji. Of course they will. I mean, realistically, who else would they suspect other than Beatrice?
ジョージ君たち3人はどこへ行ったの？
夏日奥様のお部屋を探し物に行きたいと言われましてお出かけになりました。まだお戻りになりません。
なんだって。
Oh, here comes that music.
その出かけたってのはいつ頃の話なんだよ。
2、3時間前のことだと思います。
そんな、なんでそんな大事なことをやっちゃなくて、なんで不審に思わなかったんだよ。
Oh, maybe even Balor's gonna suspect Genji.
常に一人使用人は待機していなくてはなりません。
And still no word from Kinzo yet on whether or not he's alive. Maybe he'll be the one left standing after all this. The last to die.
彼らが戻るまで待機しているのが私のお務めでしたもの。
Was Genji-san really that much of a robot? This is bad, this is bad. It's really bad. The fact Dr. Nanjo Kumasawa-san had been killed in this way meant that 3 people had already been killed. We ran towards Aunt Natsui's room with a touch of anxiety and just as much resignation. Well, now we get to see the aftermath. We just got to see the end of it with Shannon and George about to die. Before we even saw the inside of Aunt Natsui's room, we were imprisoned by a certain resignation. On that door was bizarre graffiti. No, filth? In any case, the door wasn't in a normal state, and we were able to imagine what was inside that room without opening it. On the face of the door, how should I say it? Someone had heavily painted their hands with the same red paint that the magic circles from before had been drawn with, and had banged on the door, scratched it, dirtied it. It was dirtied like the aftermath of a kindergartner playing in the mud. I didn't know what it could mean. The bright red paint that had been slathered on was dripping down, and even though no one said it, it made us think of blood.
Genji-san, 開けてください.
He's like, bitch, I can't, you took the keys. Auntie Rosa held her gun up high and ordered Genji-san to open. Oh, I guess she's gonna give him the key. Genji-san approached the door without being particularly troubled by that stuff on it and turned the knob, but he immediately turned around, shaking his head. It was locked. Right now, there's only one person in this mansion who could lock and unlock doors at will, Auntie Rosa. This time, Genji-san asked Auntie Rosa to unlock the door instead of the other way around. After making a slightly disgruntled face, Auntie Rosa handed me a master key and told me to open the door.
バトラー君、これで開けてもらえる。
そのくらいのこと、ケンジさんを信用しても。
Oh, Battler still wants to believe Genji's okay. Auntie Rosa glared at me with an intense gaze. Getting into a fight here would only make the environment turn even more sour. Without talking back anymore, I approached the creepy door and tried the knob. It didn't open. It was definitely the resistance of the lock. I stuck the master key into the keyhole. Clunk. A light resistance. While listening to Auntie Rosa, she told me to be cautious. I opened the door without being particularly cautious at all. And there was the scene laid out before us, not betraying our expectations in the slightest.
ひどい。
やっぱり第4
It's pretty sad. They're not even surprised anymore. He's just like, I've seen so much death. What does it matter? The inside of the room looked as though a robber had just broken in. Drawers were flung open, pulled out, their contents thrown all over the floor. The room devastated so that it looked nothing like the room of the methodical Aunt Natsui. But the thing that caught the eye before that was Goda-san's body lying face down right in front of the door. One of those demon stakes had been rammed right into the center of his chest, almost as though it had been stuck there to finish off a vampire. Exactly how far would it have reached after being struck that deeply into his chest? My own chest hurt just imagining it.
胸をえぐれば第5の番だったか。
Maria grabbed my hand. Her expression looked just like normal, but maybe she was really afraid of the aura in this room where 3 bodies lay. And along the wall, farthest into the room, George Aniki was dead. This time, one of those stakes had been rammed right into the center of his stomach. Gouging the stomach was the 6th twilight, I think. Oh, that means Shannon got it right in the head. Aw, Shannon body's... I imagine that she probably... Beatrice probably wanted to take the most time with Shannon because she felt the most, like, animosity towards her for defying her. Shannon-chan's body was face down over the front of the dresser, lying in a sea of blood. In this horribly broken mirror, sprayed with blood, had she seen her final worldly expression? Because she was face down, I couldn't see her face. But I could imagine, even without seeing it. Nearby, in a sea of blood, she lay in. A demon stake had fallen. Only the 4th twilight was left. Gouge the head and kill. Maybe my heart was completely tired out and dead. Even though I knew what I was doing was wrong, I lifted her head and checked, and confirmed my guess was right on the mark. There was a gaping hole in Shannon-chan's forehead, and her insides were dripping out. Not only that, you could even see inside her. Yeah, because, like, Beatrice would probably have, like, all she'd have to do is stick her in the head and kill her, but no, she wanted to, like, defile her, I guess. After seeing that, I finally noticed that what I was doing was wrong. I immediately averted my eyes, but by now it was probably pointless.
こらバトラ君、警察が来るまでそっとしておかないとダメよ。勝手に触ってどういうつもり？せっかくの現場証拠がおかしくなっちゃったらどうするのよ。
Okay, Rosa. Alright, let's check. Go ahead and check the characters. It'll be updated now. Shannon died in Natsui's room, with her forehead having been pierced by a weapon shaped like a stake. On the fourth twilight, gouged the head and kill. She got to spend her last moments with the man she loved. Goda died in Natsui's room with his chest having been pierced by a weapon shaped like a stake. On the fifth twilight, gouged the head and kill. The chef's goose was cooked. Kihihihi. And George died in Natsui's room with his stomach having been pierced by a weapon shaped like a stake. On the sixth twilight, gouged the stomach and kill. It's hard to say, but they might have been the second twilight. Auntie Rosa yelled furiously at me and even yanked the back of my collar. I tottered limply and fell on my butt and gazed dimly up at the ceiling.
マリア、
お
これで第8の番まで終わっちまったな。
Now it's like he's going to accept it's like we're not going to be able to solve the riddle. We're going to die.
第9の番って何だったっけ？
第9の晩に魔女は蘇り、誰も生き残れはしない。
そっか。これで黄金の魔女ベアトリーチェは復活するんだな。そしてなんだ、最後の第10の晩。
第10の晩に旅は終わり、黄金の里に至るだろう。黄金鏡の扉はもうすぐ開かれるんだよ。もうすぐ。
魔女は蘇り、誰も生き残れはしない。俺たちはこれから死ぬのか、それともこれで生贄の儀式は終了で俺たちの旅は終わり、黄金鏡へたどり着けるのか。何が俺たちの旅だ。俺たちは今日一日犯人を見つけよう、事態を打開しようと散々頭をひねって何も至れなかった。バカの考え休むに似たりってやつだ。そうさ、俺たちは今日一日
His sad face breaks my
ずっと
heart.
憎悪と疑心暗鬼で自分を焼き焦がした。死んだ人間しか信用できないって言ってわざわざ3人の死に顔をここまで確認に来たんだぜ。こんな俺たちがどうして黄金鏡とやらにたどり着けるって言うんだよ。
That's right. If nothing could be solved, it would have been much better if we had locked ourselves up the whole time without thinking at all. Grandfather was the wisest of us. He'd been shut up in his room since yesterday, without any contact with anyone. That would have been fine. Grandfather was the most correct.
大丈夫だよバトラー。マリアといれば大丈夫。魔女はとても気まぐれで、時に面白半分に人間を殺すかもしれない恐ろしい存在だけれども、でもマリアと一緒にいれば絶対に大丈夫だから、怯えないで。
Aww.
ありがとな。気休めでも
Aww.
嬉しいぜ。
This is very different from the first chapter where everybody was mad at Maria. And Battler was very antagonistic with her, as was everybody. After Auntie Rosa finished investigating their deaths, she proclaimed she would seal this room again, chase the rest of us out, stole back the master key she had lent me, and locked the door again. It seemed George and Iki had been holding the original key to Aunt Natsui's room. She had also collected that. Wait a second. She had all the master keys in her hand, and if the original key had been shut up inside that room, wasn't this another locked room? So this is a fourth locked room? Now that we'd been released from our suspicion of those three, we once again returned to the parlor. I don't have a clue what's going on anymore. If only the dead are safe and everyone alive is a wolf, then all that's left is me, Auntie Rosa, Maria, and Genji-san. Only those, grandfather, and that 19th person, A guest who I hadn't even sensed, Beatrice. 13 people had died, and 6 were left. With only 6 people, how would the wolves and sheep puzzle end? Even though the puzzle, which had had 19 people in it, had been reduced to a mere 6, I couldn't find any answer. Okay, yet another crazy episode, learning that, as I predicted, Shannon, like Hannon, does have magical abilities, but unfortunately, only delayed the inevitable, but could not protect her and George as they went down along with Goda. Just as I was starting to like Goda, 3 of them cut down, so that just leaves 4 people, not including Kinzo, whether or not he's alive or not. So we've got Rosa, we've got Badler, we've got Maria, and we've got one servant, Genji. And you know Rosa is even more suspicious of Genji, considering he would be the only person she could think of that could kill George and Goda and not Jessica, and Shannon. So it looks like we're coming to the end. The final Twilight is going to be coming up soon, and I'm hyped for it, and I hope you guys are too. So I'm not sure how much more of this there's going to be left. We still have not discovered what's going on with Kinzo. He's up in that room. We don't know if he's alive or dead yet. It's like Schrodinger's cat, he could be alive, he could be dead until we get confirmation. We just don't know. So we will see in the next episode. We'll see if we get the answer to that, and we'll see, if the final Twilight is going to be happening soon. I hope you guys are hyped for it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye. Special thanks to my top tier patrons: Nana, Derek Nickel, Derry Gazif, Harry Gazif, Kennedy, Asborn Kennedy, and Icognito.